Okay.
Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday, March 8th Town Board meeting, Hyde Park Town Board meeting. Good to see all my colleagues here.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
We're welcoming our Chief, Robert Benson, to our meeting tonight. So please do join me as we pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so Neil or Donna, did you receive any public comment on the resolutions for tonight's meeting?
I did not.
Okay. Again, you know, we're conducting the meeting virtually, so people have the ability to submit comments via email to the town clerk, or they have the option to register through our website for the meeting. But being as we do not have anyone registered or any public comments to read, we'll go ahead with our workshop, which is the presentation of the final Town of Hyde Park Police Reform Collaboration Plan. And again, we have Chief Benson joining us tonight, and we were just discussing the long process that was involved in the creation of this plan, beginning many months ago with a series of meetings sponsored by Dutchess County with a number of the stakeholders, all the police departments, all the municipalities that have police departments, the sheriff's office were involved. And, you know, the county provided guidance on how we could adopt a plan in conformance with the governor's executive order. And we've done, I think, really good work. Proud of our chief, who has really leaned into this process. We've used various tools and mediums in order to involve the stakeholders. We had a couple of forums where people were able to register and participate. We had an online survey that will be posted to our website. And we had a series of meetings with local Hyde Park stakeholders. And the result is a really good document with lots of recommendations and changes to our policies that we will be adopting at the end of this month. So with that, I'd like to turn this over to our chief to kind of go through our plan.
Good evening, everyone. And again, thank you for the support of the town board and Neil and Aileen, especially, who were members of the committee who really helped support, you know, my endeavor here in this large task that we were tasked with by our governor. So I'll give you a little bit of backstory on May 25th, 2020, on Memorial Day. George Floyd was murdered by Derek Chauvin, a police officer in Minneapolis. So after this occurred, immediately it sent shockwaves through all the police departments, especially here in Dutchess County. When we talk a little bit about the Dutchess County Reform Committee, Dutchess County, we're very lucky here in Dutchess County that we have a very active police support system here. We all train together, we all work together, and we all tackle a lot of these problems head on. When major events like this happen in our field, we immediately start digging into why it happened and how we can prevent this from happening, you know, in any of our jurisdictions or in our county. So this was no different than any other shooting or police involved activity that is egregious. So we started doing that right away at the Dutchess Chiefs of Police Association, which I'm a member of, as well as the Mid-Hudson Chiefs of Police Association and the New York State Chiefs of Police Association. We started tackling this right away. Then Neil, you can go to the next slide there. On June 12th of 2020, Governor Cuomo signed in an executive order empowering and encouraging and actually mandating municipalities with police departments to look into evidence-based strategies and develop plans to help reinvent the police department and what we're doing and how we're doing things. Some of the executive order is attached to the plan in the appendix all the way in the back. The governor sent us a 135-page document actually outlining what we need to do and how we need to do it. So right away, some of the things that he had listed in this plan, are use of force policies, procedural justice training. I'm going to touch on some of these a little bit more in depth as we go along. De-escalation training, law enforcement diversion programs, community-oriented policing, and model policies and guidelines promulgated by the New York State Municipal Police Training Council and the accreditation process. So I want to start out a little bit of history of the police department and what we do, and a little bit about myself. This month I'll be celebrating 26 years with the Town of Hyde Park Police Department. I was born and raised in our community. So one of the big things that we look at and has been talked about in Executive Order 203 is recruiting people from within your own township. Again, I was born and raised here, spent most of my life in the Town of Hyde Park and being a part of this Town of Hyde Park Police Department and this community. So just like myself, we have many officers here that are. So our mission statement here, you'll notice everything is we. I'm not going to read it for everyone, but everything is we. We envision the future here. We envision on treating everyone the same way, because this is our police department. It's not my police department. It's not yours. It's our police department for the community, as well as the board, as well as myself. This is our community and our police department. Can we go to the next page, Neil? So our police department currently has 16 full-time police officers, including myself. We have 15 male officers, 1 female officer full-time, 1 Black full-time officer, and 1 Hispanic full-time officer. Help deal with the gaps in the schedule and to help keep our expenses low. We have part-time officers that fill in for our full-time staff. Currently, we have 11 part-time officers, and out of that 11, 5 of them are assigned just to the court. As we know, with all the mandates coming down with COVID and dealing with the courts, we have to staff a lot of officers in the courtroom to make sure that we create a safe atmosphere there, as well as one that's healthy and safe for everyone attending court, as well as the court staff there. So we have 10 male officers, 1 female, 1 Hispanic, and 9 white officers out of those 11. So when you look at the demographics on the next slide of the town, and the census from 2019 shows that the demographic of the town in 2019 was 84.5% white. Our police department demographic is 88.88. The Black demographic was 5.90. We're at 3.71. And Hispanic, we were at the town demographic is 8.5. We're 7.41. So we're very close to being a makeup of our police department close to what we serve. So I thought that was very important when we started looking at the makeup of our police department and the makeup of what the town is. We have approximately 21,000 people in the town according to the 2019 survey. So that's kind of important when you look at that. The next page, Neil. Number of full-time officers. So when we compare jurisdictions within the county, we look at around jurisdictions that are close to the same size as us. We have 36 square miles of roadway that we serve here and we protect. And you look at what we do here with 16 full-time officers, where Beacon has 37 and East Fishkill has 32 at their peak. We've been a lot of retirements and people that have retired out on disability that are beginning to be replaced in other departments. So when you look at what we do with the amount of people we do, our officers here do a lot of work, and they do a lot of one-on-one work compared to other agencies. So when you look at the population on the next page, again, we're about 21,000. Beacon is right around 17,000, where East Fishkill has almost 30,000 residents, as according to the 2019 census. So on the next slide, you're going to see our 2019 statistics. And I grabbed 2019 because, as many of you know, we have started a new records management system of New World Tyler Technologies, thanks in part to a $187,000 grant we received from Dutchess County. And that program, we used it for part of the year, as well as we've used our old system for part of the year. So once we get those statistics combined, we're going to release those statistics for 2020 as well. So it's just taking a little bit more time to compile them, because what was considered maybe a dispute in the old system is different in the new system. So there's different call types. So when we have to sit down and we actually have to compare the call types with the type of call it was for those calls. And we have 9 months worth of that data to try to compare that. So some things in here I want to point out. We handled 11,704 calls for service. And out of that, there was 2,049 traffic stops, and we issued 1,146 tickets. So one of the things I want to talk about with that is that doesn't mean that each one of those traffic stops, 1,146 of those ended in one ticket, because some people got multiple tickets. So it's hard for me to give you an exact number of how many of those motorists out of the 2,049 were ticketed. But when people talk about we write too many tickets and we stopping too many people, we're not giving breaks, we're not using discretion, I think that number shows that a lot, that we do. Our officers do give a lot of discretion when it comes to traffic stops and issuing tickets. As you can see, even if it was 1 for 1, it's almost half of the people get a ticket, the other half don't. So the next slide is going to break down a little bit of the major calls for 2019. Now, we in the profession know that these numbers are soft numbers. They're not very hard numbers, because when you have someone that takes a call for service, a police assistant or an officer, they may label something as a harassment call when really it was a domestic, or really was a disturbance. So depending on the person who receives the call and what they classify the call as, depends on what the call is listed as. But there's two important ones that I want to focus on here. For us today is the emotionally disturbed persons of 182 and the suspicious person activity of 579. So a suspicious person or suspicious activity, a lot of times those calls are generated from people in the community. And it goes back to the old saying of, you see something, you say something. So if someone sees someone in their neighborhood that they don't recognize, or something that seems suspicious, it will be called into us as a suspicious person or suspicious activity. If you look, 579 calls, that's a lot of calls that we get called on where they're really unknown calls. They're very dangerous calls for the officer, and those are calls that can turn bad and turn into a use of force situation rather quickly. So we're starting to turn a lot of our training on emotionally disturbed persons and suspicious activity calls, because of they're not stable. They're unstable situations where they can turn in a moment. We have no background, we have no history going into that type of call. So what we're focusing on, we did in our work group, and I'm focusing on here for training purposes, is those two areas. And Neil, the next page. So this led us to our police reform for Dutchess County. So the Executive Order 203 stated each municipality needed to reach out to community stakeholders in our community, organizations that are stakeholders. So that's a district attorney's office, that's the public defender, religious leaders, and things of that nature. So Marcus jumped right on board right away, Marcus Molinaro, our county executive, and he created a Dutchess County Police Reform and Modernization Collaborative, which had many different groups that were broken down. So I was a member of the law enforcement group. Aileen and Neil were members of the administrators group. We kind of met, every other week, Aileen, we did a conference together, and we tackled a lot of these problems together. And the county produced, at the end of it, over a 100-page document of guidance, as well as the guidance from the state. So it was a huge help for us moving forward with this plan. So as we talked about the community stakeholders committee, we identified different organizations in our community that would be able to give us feedback from the community and community members. So we not only use the information from Dutchess County collaborative. We also sent out a survey in January, thanks to our friends in Rhinebeck who helped us. We used a lot of their information from their survey to help us send out to our community members as an anonymous survey. It went out to anyone who wanted to take it. We actually did very well with that. I was very, very pleased with that. We had 261 responses back from that. And so we took that survey and we went to our community stakeholders after we identified who they are. Obviously, it was Aileen as our town supervisor, our deputy supervisor, Neil Krupnick, myself. We reached out to the Chamber of Commerce, and we had Rob Sweet as a member of the committee from our Chamber of Commerce. Our religious leader group was Craig Gabor from the United Methodist Church, Hyde Park Methodist Church. Hyde Park Rotary Club with David Meyerson, the Hyde Park School District of Aviva Kafka. And that's an important piece because we have 2 full-time school resource officers in the school, and our schools actually become like a community inside of a community. So it's an important piece to get the school district on board to be available to help give us some guidance from their ends. And our community activists, we chose Frankie Flowers from the John Flowers Foundation. They do a lot of work in our community. We've assisted them with doing some work in our community. And Frankie really has a pulse on the community and what's going on here in our community. So he was an important piece, as well as the plan dictates you need someone from the district attorney's office. We had Sarah Thompson, an ADA from Bill Grady's office, and Tom Angel gave us a public defender, Seth Gallagher, who's a really wealth of knowledge as far as dealing with some of the people that we deal on the negative end of it. So it's nice to hear from the public defender's office when they have their vision and their recollection of their encounter with the police that they share with him, that they're able to share back with us. So we identified these as our stakeholders of our community. There's so many people that are involved in our community, but we couldn't have a committee that was so large that it became cumbersome to try to get everyone together. So we had four scheduled meetings. I worked offline with some of the members with some different things when they had different questions. And then that's where the survey comes in. So we felt that if we couldn't get everyone in to be a community stakeholder, we could get them to committee a survey. And we also held a forum, which only 2 people attended on the 19th of January, I believe it was, where we held an open Zoom to kind of hear from the community. So we're still looking for any community input that people want to give. They can always email myself. They can email the town board. They can give a call here and leave a message, and I can get back to them, and I'd be more than willing to sit and talk with them, and share their opinions also. So the next slide will show a little bit of a breakdown from the recommendations from the Dutchess County Police Reform Initiative, our survey, and our Police Reform Committee. Updating our policies, providing information on how to file a complaint if you have a complaint about an officer, diversity of the police force, increased amount of training. And again, training is so important in dealing with any of these situations. Community outreach and communication, community policing strategies, criteria for promotions within the police department, reviewing and tracking the use of force incidents, officer wellness. So we've started to do a lot of research on officer wellness. And what we mean by officer wellness is not just whether someone has a fever or whether they're sick. They're calling in sick a lot. We look at the types of calls that our officers go on, and things that they're involved in are not what's normal for normal people to see. We see a lot of death. We see a lot of victims of some very violent crimes. And it's very tough on our officers because we are human. So they've done a lot of studies to determine that officers that are dealing with a lot of that weight on their shoulders, and without it providing any kind of outlet or any kind of counseling or peer reviews or anything, aren't as good of police officers as they should be. So we're starting to do a lot of focus on that now. And I'm glad, again, that the county is taking a very proactive approach with this, and we're all working together to tackle some of that. The role of our SROs. As we all know, that I spent 6 years of my career working in the school, working alongside the school district with the counselors, the psychologist, the guidance office, the administrators there. And the role of the school resource officer is so important. And I get so nervous when people say, well, you're just there to create security for the students. No, we don't walk around with assault rifles. We don't start checking all the doors to make sure no one's breaking in. They actually are a full resource to the school district. And if you talk to any of the kids that are in the school now that are dealing with them, or you talk to former students that have gone there or go through there, and you talk to a lot of the staff, they are an unbelievable asset. And we're lucky enough that we have 2 officers in our schools that are there to help support the kids. They're even supporting them now remotely. They're doing home visits and things. So that's a huge thing where we're lucky we have an agreement with the Hyde Park School District that outlines the exact role of our school resource officer and what they do and what they don't do. That was one of the big recommendations that came out of this, was not to replace them or take them out, but make sure you identify and define their role in the school. So we actually have that in place in our intermunicipal agreement with the school district. Transparency through body cameras. And the last one is civilian review boards. So as we go to the next slide, we're going to talk about policy review and current policies. So in June, before this executive order was even issued, I met with Aileen and Ken Snyder, who was our liaison at that point, and we talked about our policies and procedures. So policies and procedures are the glue that holds a police department together. Our policies and procedures were outdated. Some of them were not even existent. So we recognized that right away, that we needed to evaluate these policies and look for some guidance. So, and another way to help create transparency, we looked at outside agencies to help write our policies. So I did a lot of research on different agencies and different people that provided this service. And I decided and recommended to the town that we go with a company called Lexipol. So Lexipol is actually out of Texas, but they have over 106 clients in New York State, including the city and town of Poughkeepsie, Village of Rhinebeck, Fishkill, and Pine Plains. Dutchess County Sheriff's Office is just getting ready to sign on and join here in 2021. So in this Executive Order 203, it talks a lot about building your policies so that way when you call for backup, the officers that are arriving have very similar policies and procedures as you have. So obviously we know we connect to town of Poughkeepsie, we connect to Rhinebeck and Clinton, we connect to Rhinebeck. All the agencies involved here that we're going to have direct contact with all will have similar policies, which is huge when you arrive on the scene of some type of incident. We all generally have very close to the same exact policies. Lexipol's company writes policies that are federal, state, and local law compliant. So they meet every single component of the federal law, the state law, and our local laws. And they also have what they call best practices for handling different situations. So we are working with Lexipol now. The town has agreed back in July, they agreed that this was something that we needed to take on, and they were able to put out the $7,600 it's going to cost per year for us to update our policies and make sure that we're compliant. Because many times when you see these incidents occur, like this tragic event that happened with George Floyd, the first 2 things you look at is training and you look at the policy. So the policy needs to be written and you need to train with that policy. So as part of Lexipol, there's training components put right into this policy. So our officers will get an email with a test, and that test will give them 4 or 5 different questions on our policy. So not only do they read the policy, I have tracking in there now to know that they read it and they acknowledge the policy. They also get training on it. So they will get questions emailed to them, and they will answer those questions based on the policy that is written for that situation. And then we get those results back. So we know, okay, 3 or 4 of the officers didn't understand the policy for vehicle pursuits. So we need to do a training on that to make sure that everyone understands these policies. There's also an app on your phone, Lexipol app, so an officer in the field can pull it right up on their phone, or they can pull it up on the car computer that's inside the car. So that way, if they're in a situation where they're not sure what the policy is for that, they'll be able to do that. So on the next page, updating policies. As I stated, there's 119 policies in total that Lexipol has provided us with, and these policies are updated all the time. They constantly are sending out updates. The updates come to me. I look at the update, I accept it, and then I send the update out to everyone. So we have the most updated policies for everything, including a lot of these hot button ones that are on here now. Obviously, we rewrote our mission statement. The use of force policy is one of the largest components. That was one of the first ones that we did here in rewriting was the use of force. Our recruiting, promotions, dealing with hate crimes, filing civilian complaints was another large hot button one. Training, we've now increased our in-service training or training for each officer from 11 hours to 21 hours to meet the minimum standards for accreditation as well as Lexipol. Vehicle pursuits. Now, standards of conduct on duty and off duty. We all know that when I'm out in Stop and Shop, people know me as the chief of police of the town of Hyde Park. So when I'm in Stop and Shop, even if I'm with my family, I'm expected to act accordingly and act in a certain way. So we never had those policies before. So now we're enacting these policies, and we're making everyone be accountable. Bias-based policing, traffic stops, eyewitness identification. Social media is a big one. You're reading about it constantly. You're seeing officers that have posted things on social media now that are getting fired or losing their job for violating social media policy. We've had a social media policy, but we now have updated it to where our detective goes in and does spot checks on everyone's social media of current officers that are working now. So that's a big piece that we look at, because if someone changes after they become a police officer, we want to know that. We want to know if they're changing, they're leaning a certain way, they're supporting certain groups that don't go along with our mission statement and what we believe in here. With the updating these policies, we have to understand that we also have a collective bargaining agreement that dictates how certain things are done. So these policies aren't just as quick as write a policy and send it. We have to make sure that if it does conflict with something in the collective bargaining agreement, that then we have to open up the contract and we have to negotiate that. So that not only costs time, but it also costs money. And I want to point out at this point, while I'm talking about money, these mandates in Executive Order 203 were all unfunded mandates. So the town has paid a lot of money already to help write this policy and this form and this plan and invest into the findings that I've given them. So this is costing all of us money, and these are unfunded mandates from the state that we're working on here. Civilian complaint policy. So luckily, I'm going to knock on wood because I'm old-fashioned and that's how I was raised. Since I've been chief on my birthday, August 17th of 2018, my 46th birthday, 2018, I'm sorry, I have not had one personnel complaint that has reached my desk for me to handle. So the way that personnel complaints have been coming in is if someone has a complaint about an officer or something that occurred, they come and talk to the first line supervisor, who's a sergeant. And then if it is a sergeant that they're complaining about, or if it's something that they can't handle and explain to the person or work out, then it goes to the lieutenant who investigates it, writes a final report, and puts it on my desk for me and the town board to go over how to conduct any type of discipline. Unless it's a crime that was committed obviously is sent right out to another police agency. We don't investigate crimes against our own officers. So our policy is being updated. It's going to be finished probably within the next few days. This whole police reform has really occupied so much of my time. I haven't been able to focus a lot on these policies, but so our procedure is going to be updated. So complaint forms will be on the town website. They'll be on our Facebook page. They'll be on the town's Facebook page. They'll be located in town hall. They'll be located in the vestibule here at the police department. So there'll be plenty of ways for people to get a complaint form. They can also send emails to me. They can call on the phone. They can be done verbally, where before they only were done in a written fashion or written form. So we're updating all of this, and our goal is to put up all the complaints, a history of the complaints or summary of the complaints at the end of the year on our website of what complaints that we have that have come in throughout the year. The next piece I want to work on is the hiring practice for Hyde Park Police Department employees. So the stakeholder suggestions from the county and from our stakeholders is talking about recruiting a diverse workforce, training and continuing education of the officers that come in, hire from our community that we serve, recruiting from within our own community, not just hiring them, but recruiting people from our community to applying, expanding our candidate pool, and supporting officer wellness. So when we hire a police officer or a civilian dispatcher or full-time employee, all hires are hired under the guidelines of the Dutchess County Human Resources or New York State Civil Service. So that limits a lot of times our candidate pool for hiring candidates, especially police officers. So currently the way the last test that was given that is now expired for police officer candidates, they had to have a minimum of 60 college credits. They could have 2 years as a security guard, 2 years full-time as a correction officer, 2 years full-time as a dispatcher, or they could have 4 years of military to be able to just take the test. So when we look at a lot of the different communities in the state, hiring in an urban environment is a lot harder to find people that are living from that community, in that community, and represent the community itself. So we've asked, and we met with Dutchess County Human Resources, Stephen Richter, and we also met with Marcus Molinaro with the Chiefs Association, and we brought forward some of our frustrations and our roadblocks and hurdles that we have to try to be able to meet the mandate of hiring from within our community. So even if right now we wanted to hire a police officer who was a full-time police officer with 10 years of experience out from Rochester, and we wanted to hire him here in Hyde Park, even though they were a police officer, they're very highly recommended, they're very highly trained, we wouldn't be able to do that under the current guidelines that were in place because they didn't meet the same recommendations or same criteria to take the test as the current test was. So for instance, I was hired when you only needed a high school diploma. So if I tried to go to another township that had a test that required college, I would not be able to be hired there, even though I am qualified as a police officer and already working as a police officer because of the hurdles of the civil service. So we've redone some of those requirements, and now they're going to allow some with a high school diploma to take the test. And then once they're hired, if they're hired by a police agency, they have 5 years to get their associate's degree or get 60 college credits. So the compromise we came up with was hiring the person, letting them take a test and being hired without college credits. But then by the time 5 years is up, they have to have an associate's degree. Now, Dutchess County has went one step further, and they actually signed an agreement with Dutchess Community College that every candidate that goes through the Dutchess County Sheriff's Department Academy will graduate that academy with 30 college credits. So just by taking the police academy and graduating the police academy, they're going to be halfway to their 60 college credits or their associate's degree that they're looking for. So I think that was a huge compromise. It was a big piece for us to be able to increase our hiring pool from a mud puddle basically to a pond. And I think that's a big win for everyone in the community as well as anyone wanting to become a police officer. So we always, in the town since I've been here under Jim McKenna and all the way through Eric Palilli, we've always used a resident preference list. So when you take the Dutchess County Civil Service test, when we call for a list of eligible candidates, we request a resident preference list. So we're looking for people from Hyde Park first. So we're looking to hire people that live in our community or from our community first. And then they go through an extensive background, and a lot of that is listed out in our reform plan. We make everyone open up their social media. We do a polygraph examination. We do a psychological examination. If they were in the military, we go back and we talk to people that were involved with them in the military. Every previous employer we visit in person. We don't do phone calls. All their acquaintances, we don't just go off a list of references that they provide. We dig deep into them and we talk to their neighbors in their neighborhoods. It takes about 6 to 7 weeks for our detective to go through a background investigation for a full background on one person. And if they don't meet all the requirements, then they don't get recommended to be hired. So you have to meet all of them, not just, oh, well, they got 6 out of 7 or 5 out of 8. No, they need to meet all those requirements to be able to get hired. So when we look at recruiting, what we do is we go out and we go to, we have job recruitment fairs at FDR, at Marist College, Dutchess Community College, and Dutchess County BOCES. So Dutchess County BOCES has a law enforcement program, and I'm on the committee there for content and things of what they're teaching them and how they're teaching them. And I have gone out there a couple times in the past and given presentations to them, as well as I've done the same, been guest speakers at Dutchess Community College. So we go into our colleges and actually we have done one at the culinary as well, just in case we want to get a chef who wants to come and be a police officer now, and then they can help make us nice lunches and teach us how to cook. So
I like that.
We do that as well. But what we're going to do is once the test has been announced, we're going to do in-person kind of meet and greets at some of our local apartment complexes. We're going to go out into the community, myself, as well as some of our members, or go out and do a question and answer session with people that may be interested in doing this job. And we're going to do a better job of getting out into the community. We're going to do more on social media, advertising it on social media. So we're going to do a lot of that work. And I had a lengthy conversation with Ken Snyder about doing that and getting into our apartment complexes where, the majority of our people, in apartment complexes live. So we're going to do that, and we're going to hold some of those. Hopefully COVID will allow us to do that. And we're going to obviously try to make them as safe as possible to do that. The next slide, we're talking about transparency with body-worn cameras. So I've done a lot of research on different vendors for body-worn cameras, and some of them were as much as $187,000 over 5 years. Some of them were up to $55,000 for over 5 years. So after meeting with several of the different vendors, we looked at going with WatchGuard video for body-worn cameras, and it's going to cost approximately $12,000 a year to purchase those cameras. So Dutchess County has promised us that if we put it in our plan that we're interested and we want to implement a body-worn camera program, that they will help us go out and seek funding. So we're looking to try to get funding from Dutchess County, New York State, as well as the Bureau of Justice grants that are out there. They have not released a body-worn camera grant as of yet for on the federal level, but I have it up on my browser and I refresh it every single day waiting for that to come about. So I've taken 2 webinars from the Bureau of Justice on body-worn camera grants and how to write the grants and think criteria that is needed. I've gotten a couple email addresses and phone numbers for people that are going to help me there once they release that. So once that funding is available, I'm going to try to work hard to make sure that we secure some funding for that program here. We all know that body-worn cameras give us an insight of incidents in real time. So you get to see what the officers were looking at the time something occurred, and it's the best way to get a true picture of what occurred. If we had an incident here right now and all of us sat here and we watched it, we may have 5 or 6 different accounts of what happened at that time because different people look at different things. So body-worn cameras are a great way to reduce liability, document incidents, provide evidence of behavior of our officers as well as the defendants at the time of arrest. And the biggest thing is it creates transparency.
Chief, I have a quick question, if you don't mind, about body
Sure.
cameras. Is that something that when the officer starts his patrol, the camera is on and then it's off at the end of his shift, or does it go on when there's a call? How does that normally work?
Well, that's a great question, and that is as part of the reason why this isn't just purchase cameras and put them in service, because we have to worry about HIPAA, and we have to worry about the collective bargaining agreement, how that's done, and we also have to deal with juveniles when you're recording a juvenile or recording a victim. So the way most of the cameras work, the way this system works here is you'll come in for service. Officer Ken Snyder will go up to dispatch. He'll say, I'm in service. The police assistant will then open up a web browser, click on your name. You'll go back to the rack where all the cameras, it'll say Officer Ken Snyder on your camera. You'll take it off, you'll mount it on your person. Then if you're on your way to a call, obviously you have to have a policy in place of when you activate the camera, when you don't activate it. And then you activate the camera. A lot of the cameras come with up to, you could have a camera record 24 hours a day. Most places don't have that because everyone deserves a right to privacy, right? So if I'm sitting here and I'm taking a call from my wife about things that I need to get at home, I'm talking to a union representative about a problem at work, those are things that should not be recorded. So most of the policies that are in place for this, and the recommendation is to have a 30-second delay. So if I'm in Stewart's and I'm getting a cup of coffee and I'm standing in there, my camera's off, and someone comes in and starts creating a ruckus, I hit the button to record on my camera, then my camera starts recording. But it will record and lock in 30 seconds prior to me hitting the button. Now, some of the policies have it where you have audio and video from 30 seconds before. Some is just video, and some is nothing before. It just starts recording the minute you push the button. So again, that will be part of the policy, and it'll have to be part of whatever is negotiated with the union as far as how it's used and how, the oversight of it. So there's some questions that need to be answered with that. But generally, yes, once you hit the button to record, now if you and I are on a call, they're time synced together. So when Derek downloads the video for Discovery, it'll time sync at 6:42 p.m. It'll show your camera and it'll show my camera on the same incident of what you saw and what I saw, because I may be in a different room and I didn't see the same thing you observed. So there's a lot of pluses to these programs, but again, we don't want to make a knee-jerk reaction to something. We want to make sure what we have is right for everyone, and make sure that we reduce liability in every way we can.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome. So on the use of force piece of it, in 2019, we had 10 incidents of use of force. So the use of force in the New York State reporting guidelines are listed out here. Firearm displayed, firearm used, taser displayed, taser deployed, impact weapon displayed, like a baton or a nightstick, an impact weapon used, or physical force used. So anytime an officer in our department uses any type of these types of physical force, it's documented on a use of force form. This form is then sent to the lieutenant, who then monthly reports to New York State on the incidents of use of force for our agency. So we had 10 incidents of use of force. In one incident, there was a taser deployed and physical force used. So it shows 11 if you look at it here, but one incident we used a taser as well as physical force. So on the next page, you'll see the type of incident where we had to use force. And we talked earlier about emotionally disturbed persons. And as you see, 6 times out of that 10, it was an emotionally disturbed person where we had to use some type of force. So again, that is alarming to me. And that's an area that we need to address. Yes, we had 11,704 calls for service and only 10 incidences of use of force, but that 6 uses of force there on emotionally disturbed people is one of the places that I focused a lot of time and effort on in our plan. So Civilian Review Board is one of the biggest components of the police reform initiative. And as we spell out here, there's 3 major types of civilian review boards. One is a New York City model, one is a Chicago-based model, and one is a Baltimore-based model. Now, most of these models are coming out of urban environments. And as we talked about, we're a rural police department. So some of these boards have authority and subpoena power. Some of them have authority to impose discipline. Some are just report back to the board, and the board makes these decisions. So again, just like the body-worn cameras, we need to make sure if we are going to implement a civilian review board that we find the right model that works and is the best possible model. So on the next page, I'm going to talk a little bit about civilian review boards, and we talk about we need to do better research. We're going to do more research as we move forward and try to find a model that is feasible. Again, we're a rural police department. We're not an urban police department. So our complaints are a little bit different than what are in an urban setting. And the members of the Civilian Review Board need to be trained. They need to understand what we're working with and what tools we have available to us when there's an incident of use of force. The Dutchess County Sheriff's Office has really broken this down nicely, and they're actually going to provide training to Civilian Review Board members on some of these things, like what the New York State law is, what the policies are for each police department. Looking at reality-based training, they're going to have to attend the procedural justice and implicit bias classes that our officers are going to be trained in, and I'm going to go over that in a moment. And they also are going to do a ride-along. I want them to ride in the seat with the officers at least once or twice, sit at the desk and listen to the calls that are coming in, so they get a little bit of an understanding of what our officers are dealing with daily. So one of the things that we've had we had conversation about with this is our town board. The entire board has the potential to turn over every 2 years. So if you have a town board that comes in and they set a member, let's just say for round numbers, we say there's 5 members of a committee. This town board sets a committee, they appoint people, and then we have an officer that gets disciplined for an incident. Now the 2 years is up, the new town board takes over. We have a whole new town board who creates a whole new civilian review board that now comes in, has a similar officer, have a similar incident, but the discipline is different. Then are we opening ourselves up to liability of one of those officers who had a harsher punishment come back and sue the town for punishment that was given that may have been harsh or that they feel is not worthy of what the actions were. So, I want to make sure we do this correctly so we don't open ourselves up for lawsuits. And also we have to be cognizant of the collective bargaining unit, again, where it's spelled out very clearly how discipline is handled in our contracts for both civilians and for our police officers. So we're going to do more research on this, and hopefully by midsummer, end of the year, we'll have a better understanding of what we feel, whether we feel it's right to go forward with it or not. So we're going to do a little bit more research on that. Training and continuing education. I am a huge supporter of training, and I don't think you can ever have enough training in any profession that you're in, especially our profession that changes so quickly. Some of the training that we do already is our annual firearms training, CPR, AED. A FAT simulator is a shooting simulator we were using in the city of Poughkeepsie that was purchased on a grant. They're shoot, don't shoot scenarios. I think a lot of you have seen them on the news where different people go into situations and you use a screen. An officer goes in, they're presented with a situation, they go in, they start interacting with people on the other end of the screen that are fictitious, that are set up in scenarios. And some situations, there's shoot or don't shoot. We actually do active shooter training with all the police departments in the county. So we train together. So if there's an active shooter at one of our schools, as you know, all police departments are going to be coming, which is great. But we need to train together so that way no one gets hurt and we all know what we're doing. We actually do an autism awareness training with Anderson School. We're setting up one right now for April. Again, because Anderson School is here in our jurisdiction, and there's a lot of people in our community that are autistic. So one of the biggest things you see in a lot of these shootings when you're dealing with people that are autistic is they're acting differently because that's how they act. They're not under the influence of any drugs. They're not trying to hide something. It's just what they're dealing with and how they deal with things. So it's been very successful in the past to work with them. Our officers carry squishy balls and beads and things with them to help deal with people dealing with autism and recognizing the signs of someone who may have autism who's in crisis. Our crisis CIT training, our crisis intervention training that Dutchess County provides reimbursement for. Marcus Molinaro is a huge supporter of our crisis intervention team. Right now, currently, we have 15 out of our 16 full-time officers trained in crisis intervention, and we have 5 of the 11 part-time officers trained in crisis intervention. We're trying to find a way to get our part-time officers to get up to get them all trained in CIT and certified. That's a 40-hour block of training, and our part-time officers are actually that. They have full-time jobs and they work for us part-time. So we're trying to find a way that will be able to fit into that training to get them all done. We actually did a de-escalation training already with Andy O'Grady and his staff from Mental Health America of the Hudson Valley. Andy came in and did a 4-hour training with us on de-escalation. He actually wrote the program specifically for law enforcement. I met with him and explained to him what we were looking for and what we were trying to do. And these de-escalation techniques are very, very important when you're dealing with people in crisis. As we always say, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And you can have 2 different types of 2 different personalities say things. And one person, the way they say it may upset someone where the other doesn't. So we already did 4 hours of that training. We're going to continue doing that training every year in our annual training. Procedural justice training, you're seeing a lot about that. Dutchess County has taken an initiative with the help of the City of Poughkeepsie Police Department, and Lieutenant Zeltman and Lieutenant McCarthy are going out and they're training all of the officers in the county in the procedural justice training. We have sent Detective Tucker to that training, and he is now certified to train us in this curriculum, as well as he's going on the 10th of March, the 10th, 11th, and 12th to learn the implicit bias section of this training. So these are big trainings that are pushed out by the state that they're mandating all the officers get. Now, Aileen and I have gone to a meeting back in 2018 with the Latinx community, and they talked a lot about the procedural justice training then. So Aileen and I actually sent Detective Tucker then for that training. So we've had a trainer who's certified in that curriculum, an 8-hour class, since 2018. So again, we were ahead of the curve with all of these mandates on a lot of these topics. Legal updates, we get a legal update class by the district attorney's office every year that come in and talk about different changes in legislation. And we're always looking for leadership seminars. One of the biggest components that lacks in law enforcement is giving training to your supervisors. So our supervisors go through an initial 2-week training class, and that training class teaches you how to be a supervisor. But after that, there's no other trainings that are really out there for our sergeants and our lieutenant and myself to go to kind of brush up and work on being a really good leader. So we're working on some seminars with that now throughout the state. One of the good things that came out of COVID was the ability to do Zoom trainings and these webinars. So that way officers don't have to leave their families to go to these trainings. We don't have to pay for them to go. They come in to work here, they get on the computer here, and they take their training through the webinar. So like I said, I've taken, I think, 11, and I have one more scheduled for next week myself. And we're working on a lot of these leadership trainings. As we all know from my time in the school and my time as the chief, I'm a big supporter of reaching out into our community, being in our community, being a face in our community. These are some of the things that we've done that are listed in the plan on page 23 through 26. It gives a little bit more breakdown of what each one of these are. But one of the ones I want to touch on really quickly is the DART advocates. We have a domestic abuse resistance team member here 3 days a week. That's through a grant through Dutchess County. We were able to provide a worker here from Family Services to be able to advocate for domestic violence victims. She's an awesome person. We use her a lot with a lot of our victims, not just our domestic violence victims, but when we have a victim that's in crisis, she's a very good resource for members of our community, as well as for us to be able to help get someone the help that they need. One initiative that we're getting ready to start is Hope Not Handcuffs. So Hope Not Handcuffs will be able for a person who's suffering from a drug addiction to be able to come to the police department, tell our front desk that they're suffering from a drug addiction and they're looking for help. So at that time, we don't ask any questions. We automatically will contact an angel from Hope Not Handcuffs, and we will hook that person right up directly with someone to get them help. Because that's our main goal, is to try to get someone under the influence of drugs or narcotics, get them the help that they need. So that's a big thing I'm really excited about that we're working on right now. And I actually just did a thing with the ASPCA. They called and asked me if I would put up an auction item for them to help raise money, and I auctioned off a chief for a day. So I'm waiting to hear back from a nice young child from our community that won that prize. And if they do a really good job and I like it, I might give it to them at this point. But no, that these again are all things that we do, that we reach out with into our community. And part of the problem is that we don't advertise this enough. And we're going to get to that in the next slide. Is we need to let people know the things that we do here. And that was one of the big things that came back out of that survey, was communication with our community. So we want to communicate more, and we're going to communicate more. And one of the things that we're going to communicate with is we're also going to put our survey up on the town website. We're going to start using the town website for a lot of information of things we do, from our annual report of calls for the previous year to our annual use of force reports we're going to put up. We're working on a system right now to track the demographics of our traffic tickets. So again, we're working with this new software, and we're working with Dutchess County to try to pull that data out of our records management system to be able to say the breakdown of the race of all the people that are issued tickets. I'm going to do a monthly informational post on social media, whether it's going to be the Chiefs Corner, Chiefs Chronicles, something of that nature, where we talk about things from noise ordinances that we deal with to how to file complaints, everything that's police related that people may have a question about. Maybe it's a civil matter compared to a criminal matter. And the best thing we can do is keep the community educated, right? So we don't educate the community enough of what we can do and what we can't do. And we're going to do a better job of that. And we're going to use the social media platforms to be able to do that. I'm still kind of a dinosaur in that area. I don't have any social media myself. So I lean on my members here that do have a lot of social media. Officer Stallone, who works at the high school, is my go-to person for all the social media stuff, because he deals with all the social media stuff at the high school. So, I get a lot of help from them on our social media. So we need to get better on informing our community of things we do, things we need. When we have different things going on, we will put up posts if we're having vehicle break-ins throughout the community. Some of the benefits of our new software is I can print maps out now of hot spots in our community where a lot of incidents of larceny are going on. We can print out these really great, I call them like the heat sensing maps, right? So when you're out looking for someone in the woods, the fire department has these cameras that can look in the woods and find heat sources, so you can see a body in the woods and things, or in a building. So they actually have that in this program, and we just did a webinar the other day about some of that. And Derek's going to start printing off some of these charts so we can share with our officers of different areas that were being targeted more often for different crimes. So we're going to start doing a lot more communication. And the last part is just a summary of what we've done on the next slide and what we're doing. We're updating our policies and training. We're increasing our training. We're hoping that Aileen and the board have recognized that we need to have body-worn cameras, and we're trying to find every way that we can do that with the least impact on our budget, because if the budgets are so tight right now, with 2020 being a COVID year and recovering from that and all these snowstorms and the expenses that go along with that. So we recognize that it is a need, and we're trying to find the funding for it to make that happen. Hopefully By the end of 2021, we'll be able to sign a contract for that. Our civilian complaint restructuring, the transparency by using body-worn cameras, use of force reports policies, continuing our community outreach, researching the civilian review boards, and again, communication. The last thing I want to end with, and then I'll answer any questions if you have, is I just want to thank the members of our committee who gave up over an hour, at least 4 times, to meet with us, to go over things, to listen to me talk for an hour. I can go on and talk forever about this stuff because I'm so passionate about what we do and what we serve and how we do it. I love talking about what we do here and Hyde Park as a whole. I just love Hyde Park, and I can talk for hours about it. So I want to thank them for taking their time and effort. I want to thank Aileen and Neil and Steve's wife, Teresa, for helping with our survey. And I've learned a lot about technology, not just because of COVID, but because of all of these things. And you can teach an old dog new tricks. The biggest thing that I want to stress is, yes, I've been here for a long time, but I hate the mentality of this is the way we've always done it, so this is how we're going to continue to do it. I hate that. That is a statement that just hinders progress. And I'm always looking for better ways to make our department better. And if anyone has any ideas, any comments, anyone wants to talk or chat, please send me an email, leave me a phone message. I promise I'll get back to you. And I want to hear from the people in our community that we serve. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Chief, just amazing. First of all, yeah. You're amazing. You had my children in school. We've known you. You're part of the family. So just, thank you for all you do. The only question I had was, since you said the pond's a little bit larger for recruiting, will you get that information to the guidance counselors at the high school so that way they're aware of the changes?
Yes, as soon as they announced the test, I saw an article in the Mid-Hudson News talking about they're going to release the test in May. I haven't gotten anything solid from any of the associations I'm with or Dutchess County Civil Service as to whether or not that is actually going to happen. Okay. So once we get notification that it happens and I have the requirements in my hand to make sure that they are truly in print and they are the requirements, yes, we plan on reaching out to the school district, as well as, again, I want to try to do some COVID safe meetings with some of the people in our community so that way we can recruit more in our community.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, anyone else have some questions or comments for Rob? Dave, do.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
I did read the whole thing myself, believe it or not. A lot of work has been done by everybody involved. And I'm very appreciative of you and the men and women of the Hyde Park Police Department who do a great job for our town. I feel safe in Hyde Park, always have felt safe, and I hope it continues that way. I see we have a high percentage of white in Hyde Park. I didn't realize it was that high. So we might not have the problems that some of the bigger cities have. But I think what I've seen from our department is they handle everybody with real professionalism. And that's so important to call them by their name, or sir or ma'am, and that's for the men and women. I'm very, very grateful for the Hyde Park Police Department. And at one point in time, a long time ago, I said, we don't need a police department. Not the case anymore. We certainly do need you. You may not remember, we had constables, but they do a really good job, professional. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. And the biggest thing that I stress is I try to recruit officers who have the same mindset I do, right? So I was raised that you don't treat anyone differently by their income, by the color of their skin, by whether they're gay, whether they're straight, whether they're Republican, whether they're Democrat. You treat people with respect. And that's how I was raised. And that's how I was brought up through the ranks of the police department. Jim McKenna was a huge person to teach that to us. And we try to recruit people that feel the same way. And if you don't feel the same way, you're going to feel the same way by the time we're done, because that is our mission here. And that's our goal. And our goal is to treat everyone, no matter what. I grew up in a very low income neighborhood. We didn't have anything. And, we never judge anyone from what they have or what they don't have. We treat each situation the way it needs to be treated as per the law and our policy and procedure. And, you know, anytime that things are occurring where people aren't being treated that way, I want to know about it, because if I don't know about it, I can't fix it. So if someone is treating someone that way, that means we need more training, and we need to figure out a way that it doesn't happen again. So again, the survey was a great eye-opener for me. And I hope everyone gets a chance to look at the survey and take a look at some of the comments there. You know, when you do a survey that's anonymous, you get two extremes, right? You get one that goes on there and puts everything is perfect, and you get one that goes on and puts everything is terrible. You know, but if you look at it, the extremes weren't there. They were really good demographic of compliments and complaints from within our community and our community members. So it was really an eye-opener. And I think Neil and Aileen, you know, agree with me. You know, we always talk about how, oh, well, the only one's going to take these surveys are the young kids because of technology, where majority of the people that took this survey were the age 50 and over, you know, and I'm only 2 years away, well, a year and a half away from 50. So, you know, it's people like us that were taking these surveys. You know,
I took this survey and I'm a lot older than you.
Well, you don't look it, Dave, but no, it's a great demographic and understanding that, you know, people always say you don't hear from the older group, where really we did hear a lot from the older generation and things. So, you know, I grew up this way in Hyde Park, and this is the way I've been treated since I've been here. And that's the way I want to treat people, just like you guys treat everyone the same way. And that's why, you know, we make a good team. And I'm so appreciative of the support that we have here from our police department and our board and our community. I'm very proud to work here. I'm very proud to represent Hyde Park. And the reason I stayed here is because this is where I came from. This is my roots here. And this is who I want to serve, the people that I grew up with. I love talking to people in our community and meeting people, different generations of people. You know, it's wonderful here. I love it here.
Well, that really comes, I'm sorry, Dave. I was just going to say, it really comes through, Rob. You're a great leader. We're so appreciative of the hard work that you all do, all the men and women of Hyde Park. So, Stephen, I didn't really get a chance to see if you had any comments or questions.
No, it all looks great. You guys did a lot of hard work. And I can tell just, you know, from the slideshow that you did put in the work. And you do every day, you know what I mean? Police work is not easy, you know, on a day-to-day basis. And you guys just went in all on it. So, thank you very much for everything that you do.
Thank you.
You know, you make the hard work look easy. So great work. And I'm looking forward to the new policies and the new training and everything and see what comes of it. Definitely.
Thank you.
And Neil, you were a very active participant here, and I don't know if you have any additional feedback.
I want to thank Rob for how much dedication and work he put into it. He did a great job, and the presentation tonight, I'll quote my wife, who said, "This should be mandatory viewing for all Hyde Park residents." I think, and we'll get that on the workshop on the website, and I think it's just great for people to know exactly what you guys do, and exactly what you plan to do and how you do it. And just, you know, your leadership has just been fantastic. So thank you.
Thank you.
We feel you can see we all feel very fortunate to have you at the helm of the Hyde Park Police Department, and I definitely enjoy your philosophy that we can always do better. Yeah. And that's how you make progress. That's how you convey to your population that you're committed, and you guys do that every day. So we're looking forward to the next step, which will be, we're setting the public hearing tonight, and that will be for March 22nd. And then we will be holding a special meeting on March 31st. Correct. For the adoption. And I think that's a Wednesday. And I didn't mean to overlook you, Councilman Schneider. I know you did intersperse a few comments, but did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
Yeah, just one thing, Rob. I know this has been a extremely difficult time personally for you with your loss of your mom. And I know the town board and the whole town really is heartfelt for you. And this was over and beyond all that you're going through at home. So thank you for this wonderful presentation. But just know from my heart to yours that I love you, and stay strong, and give your love to your family for us, please.
Thank you. And I just want to thank the community for, I've talked to a lot of the members of our community who reached out to me for the same kind of sentiments, and sorry.
Oh, Rob, you're the best.
We love you, man. We love you, man.
We're so lucky to have you. Yeah.
Thank you.
We're all thinking of you.
Yeah. Go home to your family. Thank you. We love you, man.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Have a good night.
Yes.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay. Take care. Whew. Okay.
What a great leader, huh?
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect guy.
So good. And, a lot of good things have come out of this exercise, and
yes.
Looking forward to implementing them. I'm particularly pleased about the adoption of rules and regulations. That's what you need, and the training to go alongside it, and just that, we're making a lot of progress. The body cameras, we're going to have to find funding for that. We did find funding for the Lexapol, but, these are all very important. Safety first, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do. So, okay. All righty. So then let's go ahead and move on to the resolutions. And I think that would be starting with Neil.
You got it. Resolution 38-1 of 2021. Resolution authorizing the Town of Hyde Park Town Board to schedule a public hearing to accept public comment on the Town of Hyde Park Police Department's Police Reform Collaboration Plan, and schedule a special meeting for March 31st, 2021 to adopt said plan.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, resolution 38-2 of 2021. Resolution commencing the local law adoption process for local law D of the year 2021, entitled A Local Law Adopting Amending Zoning District Map of the Town of Hyde Park in accordance with the requirements of Section 108-3.2 of the Town Code and Section 2652 of the Town Law.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Getting there.
Yep. And just so people know that this is a map that's a result of the zoning changes that we adopted in January for the town core. But the town is required to have an official town map. And so this is the updated version that will be on the website. And important to have this on, so when people come to make applications for development, they can immediately go right to the map and find out which zoning district they're located in, and find the requirements that go with it. So we're looking forward to having that finalized and put on our town website.
Great.
Resolution 38-3 of 2021. Resolution authorizing the Town of Hyde Park Town Clerk Donna McGrogan to attend the virtual 2021 New York State Town Clerks Association Annual Conference on April 24th, 26th through the 28th of 2021.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And thank you, Donna, for going ahead and getting your virtual education.
Resolution 38-4 of 2021, resolution approving budget revisions to the Town of Hyde Park budget for the period of February 2021, budget revision number 2021-02.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 38-5 of 2021. Resolution authorizing the Town of Hyde Park Town Board to reappoint John Shalepi as an alternate member to the Town of Hyde Park Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John. Resolution 38-6 of 2021. Resolution authorizing the release of the balance of escrow for the Town of Hyde Park Zoning Administrator.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
And that's it.
Short one.
Would you like to approve the minutes from the?
Oh, sorry, Donna.
No.
Thank you. Yes. Yes, may I have a motion to approve the minutes from February 22nd?
I make that motion.
I'll second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Donna, for the reminder.
Yeah.
Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I make that motion.
And I'll second.
Second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Well, I was going to give just a brief update, sorry. But I'll just, you know, a lot of people have been asking what's going on at the former Hyde Park Motors. And I just wanted to let people know that they have not submitted any application for the property as of yet. But I did have a conversation with the property owner, and it is on the market for $2.1 million. You know, we're hopeful that there will be a good development proposed, but the site is looking wonderful. I don't know if people have been by it today, but they removed the fence that separates the Hyde Park Motors from the St. James Chapel. And it's amazing. It's really, that chapel is so beautiful. Yeah. So I did just want to give that update in case people are wondering what's the next step. So we're definitely keeping our fingers crossed. But will the farmers market still be there? Do you know? You know, I have not talked to Dot, but I will give her a call. I'm hopeful that it will, but we'll have to see. I mean, it looks great. Actually. It looks amazing. Yeah. And what's amazing is, you know, when you drive north on 9, now like this whole view of the post office is over. Oh yeah. Kind of this, you know, we have a very small area that's historic in nature. I mean, basically we're talking 3 or 4 blocks in Hyde Park. So, you know, having this prominent building of the historic post office and the library, it really, you know, I think we're all hopeful for something really nice to happen there. Yes.
I was standing at the town library last week, and I looked up the street and I could see the post office. I didn't realize I couldn't see it all those years from that position. You know, it stood out. It was really amazing.
Yeah, it looks really nice. So just wanted to give that brief update. Okay, so second motion to adjourn. Make that motion. Second. And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, take care, everyone.
Good night, all.
Take care, everyone.
Good night. Take care.
Good night.
Bye-bye.